Hello and good morning. My name is Guillermo Cusco. You're watching Fantasy Fact. We're about to begin. Let me go ahead and thank my audience for joining me. If you'd like to follow us on Twitter, Fantasy Factuals, or if you have anything you'd like to ask about or any inclinations about really anything, you guys are more than welcome to go ahead and send us an email. You'll find our email and our Twitter ticker right there at the bottom of the screen. What I intend to do today with this episode is just go over the last 3 weeks. We haven't been present for the first 2 weeks of the NFL, so it is what it is. But we're going to do a quick recap and have like a player-by-player breakdown. And then after that, we will look at some statistics that I believe are worthwhile. I have a mini cheat sheet for everybody. And we can wrap it up with Thursday night's game. Before getting started, I'd just like to say that my thoughts and prayers and the thoughts and prayers of everybody over here at Fantasy Fact are with Tua Tagovailoa and his family. We hope that his progress medically continues to be a success, and we hope to see him healthy and ready to go again soon. We will discuss this more when we discuss the game on Thursday, but as for right now, we have a lot to go through, so probably be best if we just jumped right into things. All right. So we're going to go through week one really quickly. In the first game, the Bills kind of stomped out the LA Rams. Very talented LA Rams defense, might I add. But they seemed to not be up to the task against this Bills offense and the defense. The defense held Matthew Stafford to a very poor fantasy outing, at least. We could have seen this coming. He's going up against Micah Hyde and Jordan Poirier in that secondary. Josh Allen threw 3 touchdowns. Stephon Diggs caught 122 yards for a touchdown. I believe that his target line was 10. He had 8 receptions. Overall, an amazing first day for Stephon Diggs. Fantasy managers have to be thrilled to have drafted him. He's got 26.2 points in the first game. That's got to be a good sign. Next was the Falcons-Saints game. People that I was looking at in the Falcons-Saints game include Drake London and Kyle Pitts, Michael Thomas. I also have been very excited about Chris Olave. I drafted him in most of my War Room leagues, in all of my he was one of my main targets, and we'll go over my draft process in our next episode. That'll be on Thursday. But Drake London and Chris Olave is a very interesting matchup because it's a matchup between 2 rookies coming into the league. First year, both extremely talented young wideouts, both extremely sticky-fingered. That the ball comes in their direction, and they have magical ability of being able to hold on to it, bring it in. So that's something that's worth noticing, especially on the Falcons, specifically because their wide receiver core has been quite depleted. The vacancy of Matt Ryan also, I'm sure, did not sit well. But, Drake London showed why he's going to be most likely the top target alongside Kyle Pitts in this offense. And Kyle Pitts saw the target share in this first game. I believe he saw 7 targets, but he only caught 2 balls. And I do believe that he had some point issues and production issues in the second week as well. We'll take a look at that when we look at the second game. But overall, I'm very excited about Drake London, very excited about Olave, and I'm certain that Pitts is too talented to be left just on the sideline. So I would continue to plug him in my lineups. I do have him in one of my leagues. I'm managing 8 teams, and in one of those 8 teams, I did draft Kyle Pitts. I was very heavy on Darren Waller. I went and my other tight end, I believe, was George Kittle, who, as we all know, missed 2 games. There's not really a lot of super talented depth at tight end. But we can go over all of that again on Thursday when we're talking about my draft strategies and fantasy productions over the last 3 matchups that I've had personally. I'll also be uploading videos of those matchups here on YouTube, so you guys can go ahead and check it out, analyze what I'm doing. Let's move on to the next game. Browns at Panthers. So the Browns take this game. I just got to say, the Browns have been a delightful surprise for me. I don't believe I actually drafted any Browns players. I stayed away from them. I was called in by the siren song of Nick Chubb, and I should have listened. I should have dived right in because Nick Chubb has been outstanding. Just in the first game alone, 22 attempts for 141 yards. The man's been unstoppable. He's the clear front runner in an offense that seems to be running the ball extensively. That's great. But another big surprise, something I did not see coming out of that team, was Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper has been just sensational. He may not have had the most productive first game, but he's coming off back-to-back 20-plus point games in the last 2 games. That's something else that we'll go over and we'll talk about when we get to their other 2 games. The 49ers and the Bears, this was when the field was completely soaked. Yeah, they came down on them. They were out there. I'm sure that the 49ers probably struggled with this more, considering San Francisco is not extremely rainy. I'm certainly not nearly as rainy as Chicago. So Justin Fields took this game. I have something to say about Fields and the Bear. I do appreciate what the Bears have done so far, though, this season, and there's really not much that, a person can say, because they've really made the best out of what they can. Of course, San Francisco was bringing in Trey Lance. This was his first game, and, he didn't look as impressive. I know a lot of people had very high hopes for Trey Lance. He also got injured, and he'll be out for the rest of the season. I believe that happened in week 2 or 3, but that's really disappointing. I drafted Lance in 2 of my leagues. He was going to be my starting quarterback, and I was really excited just to see what kind of production he could build out of the San Francisco 49ers team, that it just has so many marvelous and talented weapons that are at the ready and have proven that they're very much like dynamite. They were ready to go off. Deebo Samuel last year was spectacular, absolutely sensational. And George Kittle is George Kittle. There are not many tight ends that when they are on the field, they are as productive as George Kittle. So Also, very interesting game. We'll go over the Bears again later, mostly because we'll be taking a look at um, why you should not roster any of these wide receivers. Bears running backs, I've always been all in on. I've always enjoyed the Bears run game. David Montgomery, clearly somebody who's very, very talented, and they have depth at that position. In my opinion, they have two ready and willing backs that are, in my opinion, also very explosive, and maybe not as explosive as David Montgomery, but who knows? I mean, Khalil Herbert looked incredible. Absolutely sensational. He was the lead rusher in this first game, came out with 9 attempts, ended up with 45 yards in total. The Steelers-Bengals game, this one was wildly surprising, mostly because Joe Burrow threw a plethora of interceptions. We all knew that this was going to be a very pass-heavy offense, especially because of the depth at wide receiver that they have, the talent that they have in Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins. But I was not expecting them to struggle through the first 2 weeks. Joe Burrow played against the Miami Dolphins on Thursday Night Football, and, he looked a lot better. He took the second win home for his team. So I'm not really too worried about the Bengals offense, especially considering where they were last year. I think that they'll get their rhythm and they'll get the hang of it. And clearly it's already working. Now, here, fantasy-wise, I was looking at Deontay Johnson and Najee Harris. I'm a huge fan of the skills players in Pittsburgh, and my reasoning for this is because of usage. They have just massive amounts of usage. Deontay Johnson is just an incredible separator, very skilled route runner, and on top of that, his production and usage are just immense. I actually don't believe Deontay Johnson has scored a touchdown the whole year, and he's been a lineup lock for me from day one. I have not benched him. He produces too much, regardless of whether or not he's scoring touchdowns, to bench him. Of course, the added benefit there of him scoring a touchdown would be breaking that 20-point barrier, maybe get a 22-point game or a 24-point game out of Deontay Johnson. But, even when he's just racking up receptions, it's extremely productive for fantasy purposes. Jamar Chase in this first game was sensational. The best game, in my opinion, that he's had, and I'm sure there are better things to come for Jamar Chase, but it has to be frustrating for fantasy managers within the first 3 weeks because you get this just beautiful kick-ass performance in week 1 where he logs in an amazing 10 for 16. I mean, it's just incredible that he even got 16 targets, but he hauled in 10 of them. Wildly impressive. 129 yards, put in a touchdown. This was a great game for Jamar Chase. T. Higgins came in 2 for 2 for 27 yards. Joe Mixon had 27 attempts for 82 yards. Another person I drafted basically everywhere. I knew that Jamar Chase was going to fly off the boards. And Joe Mixon would go, but would go in the later rounds. I still think that there's massive upside with Mixon. And again, it pertains to usage. It's great that these two teams played in week 1 because it'll let me allude to the fact that I selected a lot of these players because they're used heavily. And I think that that's so important to take into consideration when drafting, when setting up your lineup, when basically doing anything fantasy related. This was a great game. move on mostly because I've been dying to talk about Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles, who have been outstanding. I He has been my primary quarterback. I drafted him in 5 out of my 8 leagues, I believe, and he's just been incredible. You know, through the air and on his feet, he has done it. I believe that behind Lamar Jackson, he is the most productive fantasy quarterback at the moment at the position. It's very impressive. I can't tell you I thought that the Eagles were going to be like this. It's more than just Jalen Hurts. This Eagles defense has looked incredible. The secondaries have been fantastic. Their cornerbacks, James Bradbury and Darius Slay, have just been phenomenal. It's been amazing to see. If there's something I love to watch, it's a great defense. I grew up here in Miami, watching defenses basically do their things, watching Jalen Taylor and Zach Thomas go at it and put up with the best of them. And to tell you the truth, this Eagles defense, it's incredible. I can't wait to see what they have in store for the rest of the season. I'm expecting massive production from A.J. Brown, who's already been incredible. Like, he's already been sensational. But he's also, between him and Devonta Smith, those are their top 2 targets. Dallas Goedert has been getting a good amount of work. Not enough for me to have wanted to draft him. I actually, my backup draft pick in this year's draft was Dalton Schultz. And that's just mostly because I was expecting Schultz and CeeDee Lamb to kind of have a tag team kind of relationship where defenses are shifting off of Schultz to try to cover Lamb. But again, you play and you learn. That's all I'm going to say. This Lions offense, my apologies, and their defense, honestly, Jeff Okudah has been a monster, absolute beast, has been incredible. DeAndre Swift, drafted him in 3 leagues. What a steal. The guy's amazing. He's going to be out for the next 2 weeks, I believe. So if you can pick up Herbert from the Bears or maybe Jamal Williams, Jerick McKinnon, I also believe to be starting to take the lion's share of snaps. So, and there's a couple of other options there at running back, but running back, of course, was very short. We were very short at running back during this year's draft. It killed me. I'm usually not the kind of person that drafts running back in my first position and second position. I usually draft 1 running back and 1 wide receiver or some other skills player, but there was so little depth, in my opinion, this year at the running back position that I felt it necessary to pick up 2 running backs first, which kind of made me sad and kind of made me happy. I've never really done that in my 7 years of playing this, and it went well. So far, it's been going gangbusters. The Lions missed out on this game by a narrow margin. Amon-Ra St. Brown was spectacular, 12 targets, huge target share from Goff, who has emerged as maybe a streamer fill-in pick if you're streaming that position, if you're at your quarterback position, if you did what I did in a couple of leagues and drafted Trey Lance, because I am just streaming a quarterback. I believe last week I played Derek Carr, and again, we'll go over my teams more in depth on Thursday. We'll also do an analysis of the week next Thursday, so I'm looking forward to have that with you guys. Indianapolis Colts and the Houston Texans tie in their first game. I'm sure that this rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Jonathan Taylor has not been as productive as we've wanted him to, but the usage is there. 31 attempts, 161 yards. Michael Pittman Jr., despite missing 1 week, has been incredible. In this game specifically, at 9 of 13 targets for 121 yards. Extremely impressive. Patriots, Dolphins. I was expecting a more competitive nature within this game. You know, Dolphins and the Patriots have always been bitter rivals, and Bill Belichick has had our number for many, many years. He's an amazing coach, incredible at what he does. But he's struggled with us in the last 5 or 6 games. He's had a problem with the Dolphins. I also love the way that Tua looks. Tua's looking incredible. The Dolphins receivers are incredible. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are sensational talents. In this year specifically, they've done incredible things and recorded massive numbers. I believe Hill was the top target in this match. He went 8 for 12, 94 yards. And they're putting up. They're not. Their money's where their mouth is. They are not kidding around. Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill said that they were going to be an explosive duo, and they have lived up to their names. Waddell has been sensational with downfield catches, just absolutely incredible. Tua's been putting the ball in the right places for Tyreek, especially down the field. They've gotten moving very, very well. The running back stable here, I believe, to be a little bit less consistent. It does appear, especially after this Thursday, that Raheem Mostert will most likely be taking on a lion's share of the work, but Chase Edmonds has been being used in a pass catch or kind of role, so we'll see what comes of that. Next is Lamar Jackson and the New York Jets. Lamar Jackson is just incredible. I believe in this game specifically, he threw for 3 touchdowns all through the air. It's just outstanding. He can do it all. He can throw the ball, and he can scramble and get outside of the pocket. And if he doesn't find anybody, he can take it himself and run it downfield for a touchdown. It's a triple threat kind of environment, especially for the opponents that have had to face the Ravens. The Ravens have been sensational. Mark Andrews has been incredible. I've picked him up in a couple of leagues that I got the opportunity to because he was going in the second round in drafts. But Kenyon Drake was their lead back in week 1. There was not a lot of work here from the backfield to begin with, but now going into week 4, we're starting to see J.K. Dobbins start to practice, be more involved. I do expect him to play, and I'm hoping that we see a good amount of production. These two teams have been incredible, both of them, especially for fantasy managers. The Jacksonville Jaguars have turned it around, it seems. Jesus, if you would have told me at the beginning of this year that we would be sitting on basically 3 Florida teams with 3 winning records, I would have told you that's impossible. But here we are. Jacksonville looks sensational. Doug Peterson has been orchestrating a symphony of great football, and they have the pieces to do it. I'm loving Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk was a super low buy in fantasy, and his production has just been incredible. He was the lead target in this specific matchup. He went 6 for 12, I believe, and 117 yards. And James Robinson, just something we have to talk about, obviously, has just cemented his position. We're now looking at James Robinson being the lead back in Jacksonville, I believe, indefinitely. Travis Etienne is such a global talent. He's just so good, but I I'm afraid that we're not going to see him as much as we thought we were in the offseason. Kansas City and Arizona. Kansas City has been outstanding. They've been playing very tactical. They've been playing to win games, I believe. In this specific outing, Patrick Mahomes was incredible. 39 pass attempts, 30 completions, 360 yards. He just really showed up like he usually does for this team. Travis Kelce, obviously going to be your lead producer in this game, and it makes sense. 8 of 9, 9 targets, 8 receptions. He's also basically the only person that was there last year with Mahomes. Sky Moore, Valdez Scantling, and Smith Schuster joined Kelce as Mahomes' new wide receiver ring, but we've yet to see a lot of high-end production from those guys. I drafted Smith Schuster believing that he would be, one of the primary targets for Patrick Mahomes. We have seen him get a good amount of target share, but not enough, in my opinion, to solidify a weekly role in this offense, regardless of how pass-heavy and successful it is. Kyler Murray, love Kyler Murray, drafted him in 2 of my leagues and traded for him in another. Of course, has been producing. I believe he had a bad game last week. He scored 13 points, but 20 points plus in each of the first 2 games is really hard to complain about. James Conner, somebody else I drafted, with some worries about injury, has been doing great, right? He looks good. He's taking reps. I've been very impressed with the way he's being used also as a pass catcher and the Hollywood Brown Kyler Murray connection. I've just been so excited to see this since I heard that Hollywood Brown was leaving Baltimore. And, he's showed up. He has been exactly what we wanted, in my opinion. I have a statistic here that's awesome about Hollywood Brown. Let's see if I can pull it up. Hollywood Brown is, he's second. He's tied for second in targets in the whole league. Him and Davante Adams both have 34 targets in 3 games. That's incredible. Any fantasy manager that sees that kind of usage just loves that. I don't think necessarily that Hollywood Brown is the talent that Davante Adams is, right? Davante Adams is kind of like a statue. He's like a work of art, the guy. He's very, very well-rounded as a receiver. He's very explosive. He's very physical. His physique, he's larger. And, Davante Adams is Davante Adams. But Hollywood Brown has looked incredible. Has caught mostly everything that's been thrown his way, has been putting up the production. If you drafted him, I know you drafted him not extremely early, and I am sure that it's paying off. All right. Vikings, Packers. Here we come to a team where I have no fantasy players. I tried to stay away from Vikings players this year. I don't know why. I don't have anything against the Vikings necessarily. In fact, I think that their offense is pretty potent. But I was weary about Dalvin Cook's injury status. And he's looked really good. I think he got injured this week. He might be out for a week, but he's looked really good. He's produced. He's been on the field. I'm a huge Dalvin Cook fan ever since he was over here at FSU. I am in usually on this offense, but this was a year where I did not steer towards them. Packers are having a problem, right? Aaron Rodgers doesn't have anybody to throw to anymore. Allen Lazard was injured for this first game, I believe. A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones are both being used in a dual sort of role, which is interesting to me. Because Aaron Jones usually extremely productive. But how productive can he be if there's a talented running back nipping at his heels? And again, that's the case with a lot of backfields. So we'll see what happens, I guess. Saquon Barkley, I drafted in 3 leagues. What a superstar. I can't believe that Saquon has been so productive. A lot of people were worried about him coming off the injury, but he's been sensational. The Giants have been stellar to watch. It's been impressive. Their schedule thickens here, and they start to go up against some pretty impressive defenses. So it'll be fun to see how they adapt and what's going to happen over the weekend. They beat the Titans here, 21-20. Derrick Henry, of course, getting the volume, but didn't see that production in the first couple of weeks. I believe that he broke out in week 3, though. Massive game. I was able to draft Henry in one of my leagues. See, this is a guy that went in the first round. This is a generational talent. He's a guy with size and speed. He puts his shoulder down on you, and if I were defending, I used to play at the end. If I saw him coming towards me, I would go into that exchange with a good bit of fear. He's a large back, and he's physical. He did get 21 attempts. He converted that into 82 yards, so that's good. Raiders have Davante Adams. Davante Adams has a massive target share, 34. We were just talking about it, 34 so far through 3 games. In this one specifically, he saw 17 targets. He caught 10 of those 17 targets for 141 yards. Davante Adams is just impressive, just incredibly impressive. There's nothing that I can really say about Davante Adams other than he is a physical specimen, and he certainly proves that everywhere he goes. He was with the Packers last year. He did incredible. Aaron Rodgers under center. And, he's still doing a sensational job, especially fantasy-wise, this year with the Raiders. So the Chargers I've been super excited about the whole year. Justin Herbert looks sensational. This is a very high-passing offense. So for me, I love high-passing offenses. We'll discuss a little bit of volume when we get into week 3, but high-passing offenses are my favorite. I love production from wide receivers. Keenan Allen, right? Keenan Allen went out after the first game. Mike Williams came in and has looked really, really good when he's had a lion's share of the targets. And Justin Herbert is the guy. He's got the talent. He can put his arm on it and send it downfield, which is impressive. I got to say, the Chargers, despite what I believe is, let me check here. Yeah, despite what I believe is a loss to Jacksonville, I believe week 3, which, is that a statement about the Chargers and, Khalil Mack's defensive efforts? No, I don't think it is. I think that, that defense is incredible. Darwin James is super talented. Their line is extremely talented. They have Bosa. They have Khalil Mack that they just acquired this year. They're looking like a solid defensive unit. I think it's more of a statement about the Jaguars. In this game, though, they beat the Raiders. Eckler, not overly productive this season, but, I just love Austin Eckler. He doesn't really have to produce at the goal line. He doesn't really have to get into the end zone, does he? He still finds a way to be productive because of his extremely sticky hands. He can get his hands on the ball and hold on to it. And I think that, it's one of my favorite things about him. Definitely in PPR formats, one of the better options at running back, especially because he's just getting so much attention, especially in the pass game. Alrighty. I believe that this is our last game of week 1. The Broncos, Jerry Jeudy looked really good the first game. Obviously, Jerry Jeudy went out in the second week, I believe, with an injury, opening the door for Cortland Sutton. Melvin Gordon still taking a chunk of the possessions from Javonte Williams, And they're both extremely talented. Gordon, obviously the veteran, has been in the league longer, but the explosiveness of Williams is hard to deny. I think that eventually this will be a more Williams at the goal line centric offense. The Seahawks, Geno Smith looking really good. Can't say anything about Geno Smith. 23 out of 28. This was a team I thought would struggle. I think that Pete Carroll and the coaching staff of this specific NFL team have done an incredible job of maintaining and just going forward and working with what they have, and they found success doing that. Right? I'm impressed. Would I roster any of the Seahawks players? No, I stayed away from them. DK Metcalf and Ty Lockett are usually heavily used in this offense. See a lot of targets. And Ty Lockett's always on my flex radar. I had him last year. Last year I played in 4 leagues. I believe I had him in 2 of the 4. And he's just a good guy to have, especially when you're going into a week you don't know who to play at your flex position. Ty Lockett's a safe bet. So let's get this last game over with and get into week 2. The Bucks and the Cowboys. Now that we have a huge amount of things to talk about here, right? Mike Evans, obviously. DK Metcalf. I'm sorry, not DK Metcalf. Mike Evans, obviously. Leonard Fournette. Dalton Schultz, and CeeDee Lamb. So CeeDee Lamb getting the usage, but not producing in this first game, which of course is just not something that's going to be. It's not going to continue to happen to him. He's extremely talented. He's not going to be subpar like this with this kind of usage week in and week out. He saw 10 targets. I believe he caught 2 targets in this game, and Dalton Schultz, right? Impressed, 9 targets, second most targeted person on the team. 7 of those brought in for 62 yards. Very good. Very, very good from the Cowboys. Leonard Fournette, clearly the lead back in the Buccaneers offense. Here's the thing. Leonard Fournette is seeing much higher usage. His age 27 season has been going spectacular. I think that he is someone you can forget about unless you need, unless there's an injury of some sort. And I say that wholeheartedly. I believe that he is a starter, the likes of which this league at running back has not really been seeing, right? We haven't seen a lot of production at the running back position this year. Running backs have struggled, but I expect that to change this week. I don't think that that'll be a trend that continues. All right, let's do week 2. So week 2, Keenan Allen, of course, getting injured here. Mike Williams comes in 8 of 10. 10 targets, 8 receptions, incredible, for a total of 113 yards. Very impressive. Again, Justin Herbert, they're very pass-heavy offense. I love that. I love this offense. I picked up a lot of players. I picked up Joshua Palmer late, and it was a pretty decent snag, especially going through these first 3 weeks. And they came close, right? They came close to winning this game against Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs. Here's the thing. The Chiefs played a more controlled, methodical game. This is why you didn't see Pat have those humongous numbers that he usually has. You know, he went 24 for 35, 235 yards. Kelsey caught 5 of those throws, 51 yards. This was more a win, in my opinion, for the Chiefs as a whole than it was for Patrick Mahomes. I think that they all took part in this victory, and they just went up against one of the most potent offenses in the league in week 2 and came out on top. So that's impressive. Jets-Browns game had an incredible comeback. Joe Flacco, just massive usage through the air, something we'll get to in week 3. Just incredible the amount of times that they're throwing the ball. Garrett Wilson has emerged as a rookie. I don't even think he was a sleeper because he was so talented in college. It's kind of hard to even, he's emerged as basically one of the top targets, if not the top target in this Jets offense. I believe he's been sensational. In this game specifically, he got targeted 14 times. He caught 8 of those for 102 yards. All right. And, of course, Nick Chubb, somebody I love, not just because of usage, but because of production. 17 attempts, 87 yards. Nick Chubb has been dedicated. He's dedicated himself to producing and giving for this Browns team, and it's been working for him so far. Amari Cooper, again, didn't really have a good showing in week 1. We talked about this. Week 2 and 3, much different. The man has been unstoppable. 11 targets, 7 receptions, 101 yards. Very, very impressive. So not something I expected from this Browns D. As I told you, I wasn't able to draft Nick Chubb this year, and I didn't really go out of my way to try to grab Amari Cooper or any of the other pieces of this offense. All right. Commanders-Lions. Man, right after we talk about the Jets, I get to talk about the Commanders and massive amounts of passing usage. I love it. These two teams have been passing the ball, and it's been bananas. It's amazing. Curtis Samuel, right? Curtis Samuel and the Commanders have come out of nowhere. Antonio Gibson, in a position where we thought Robinson was going to come in, maybe take some of this this weight off his shoulders. I honestly did not believe Antonio Gibson to be the lead back through the entire season, but as it's been going, that's how it looks. I'm thinking that that's how it's going to remain because he's been looking great. I drafted him at the flex position in one league where I drafted 3 running backs instead of 2 running backs. In my first 3 picks, I went running back, running back, running back. It was a great idea. Been playing him at my flex. He's been very consistent. He's been good in both PPR and non-PPR. So I I specifically don't believe J.D. McKissick is, you know, necessarily going to be stepping in for him anytime soon. And they look good. They look like a offense that's been extremely efficient for fantasy managers. Even if they do have a losing or a winning record, they've been incredible. Despite how they are, they've been sensational, and it's worth looking at. Curtis Samuel has been absolutely enormous here, and Terry McLaurin struggled the first week fantasy-wise, but has been producing incredibly, has gotten his fair share of the targets. I do expect us to see more of McLaurin, and I did draft McLaurin alongside Pittman Jr. So going into the Colts and the Jaguars game, the Colts and the Jaguars, it's interesting because this is not what we expected at all, is it? Colts didn't score at all. They were held to a shutout. This Jaguars defense has been just sensational, an absolute baffling experience. I got to watch this game. Tell you the truth, I am so happy I did, because it just showed you what Jacksonville's doing this year, I think, tremendously. I don't expect this to continue for the Colts. Tie in week one, loss in week two it's rough, especially against the Texans and the Jaguars. The Jaguars have a revamped system that works incredibly, so it's not horribly surprising, but it is surprising. So Jonathan Taylor, of course, 9 attempts for 54 yards, not too heavy usage, but extremely efficient. Doolin stepping in for Pittman Jr., who was out in this contest. He did great. 7 targets, caught 5 of his targets. I've been impressed with the Colts and how they've been playing, and they were able to do something successful in week 3, and we'll take a look at that right now when we get to week 3, but it's been worth it. Saints Bucks, Michael Thomas, of course, looking incredible again. Brady and Evans. Evans, of course, in this specific matchup, decks Marshawn Lattimore, just basically throws him to the ground, and then gets ejected, right? So this is where that production stopped. He got 4 targets, caught 3 of those 4 targets, and then I believe he was protecting Tom Brady. I saw the videos, and I watched it over and over again. But yeah, we're going to have to sit without Mike Evans in week 3, right? Something, again, we'll talk about when we go through week 3. And it's hard for fantasy managers who drafted him as a wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 even, because now you have to source some sort of a backup for this specific week. It is what it is. More power to him, I'm a firm believer that we should protect our quarterbacks, especially on a team. These guys, they look towards their quarterback especially these teams that are built around the quarterback, like Brady's team, like the Dolphins this year, for example, having named 2 of the captain, like the Ravens, giving a lot of autonomy to Lamar Jackson, and just him and Harbaugh and how they've been able to gel so uniquely and so successfully. So Giants-Panthers, another loss for the Panthers. DJ Moore, right? DJ Moore has just been hard to quantify, and I don't think it's his fault. DJ Moore is such a talented wide receiver, usually finding the end zone. Last year, he was extremely efficient. Change it at center, I think, here is to blame, and I don't think it's necessarily Baker Mayfield's fault either. I think that it's a problem with the scheme. But I could be wrong, and I did draft Saquon Barkley, who they played in this specific week 2 matchup, and who was sensational. 21 yards, 72, 21 attempts, 72 yards. Not to mention that Barkley does a lot as a pass catcher. Sterling Shepard, though, right? Sterling Shepard's come out as the primary receiver in New York, and that's been, for me, interesting to watch. Let's get through these a little faster. Ravens, Dolphins. What a matchup. I watched this one here in Miami, and it was quite the show, quite the fireworks. I must say, I'm very impressed with my Miami Dolphins, right? Mike McDaniels has been creative in his building of this offense, and I think that it's worked wonders. He has a lot of pieces to work with in Tyreek Hill, 13 catches, 13 targets, 11 catches, 190 yards in this game. Jalen Waddle, also a massive amount of catches for over 100 yards in this game. Two throws for 469 yards in this game, right? That's impressive. That's incredible. That's not a stat line you usually are used to seeing from quarterbacks. It's hard to even throw 300, 350 yards in a game. So to see this kind of success was extremely encouraging. It was great. The Ravens, of course, Lamar Jackson in this specific game, adding touchdowns with both his legs and through the air. Mark Andrews, sensational, 104 yards, TD. I think that this matchup was incredible, right? It was a all-out battle, and they duked it out until the end, in my opinion. So, very strong showing in week 2, in my opinion, between both of these teams. For both the Dolphins and the Ravens, I think that both of them put their heart into this game, and it showed. Patriots-Steelers, of course, the Steelers have not been doing extremely well with Trubisky. Najee Harris still producing, though, coming through for fantasy managers. It's impressive to see, in my opinion, how well Najee Harris has done. I think that, he is going to be a spectacular talent. I think that over time, he'll develop more and more. He's still very young. 71 yards, a TD, 15 attempts. It's not bad at all. Jacoby. Oh, I'm sorry. That was Damian Harris's stat line. 15 attempts, 49 yards, 5 catches on 6 targets for 40 yards. So his stat line is impressive. Even without the touchdowns, even without the production, you're still seeing Najee Harris somehow, some way score you points, which is awesome. Deontay Johnson in this one, 6 for 10, 57 yards. Another person who has yet to find the end zone, I believe Najee Harris has found the end zone this season. Deontay Johnson, I don't think has, and I expect this to change soon, but I can't make any assertions about it. So we'll see what happens here, but I believe there's still lineup blocks. They're still producing, even in this offense that hasn't been extremely potent. They seem to continue to rack up that usage, and we love that. Falcons and Rams. Drake London showing out in week 2 again, showing you why he's going to stay the primary option in Atlanta. 12 targets, 8 catches, 86 yards, and a touchdown. The kid is unstoppable. As somebody who invested heavily in Drake London, drafted him in 4 of my 8 leagues, I think that he's incredible. I think that he's a generational talent. If he continues to play like this, he'll be one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, regardless of who's throwing him the ball. Mariota's not massively talented at throwing the ball. He's a superb athlete and has a reputation for making something out of nothing, Marcus Mariota. No, but he's just made something out of something here with his connection that he's had with Drake London, and it's been awesome to see. Of course, Pitts held under 4 points here again. that was rough, but brighter days to come for Kyle Pitts. Week 3 will be an indicative factor in that. Seahawks, Ty Lockett having a big day, 11 targets on 9 catches. Metcalf, underwhelming, but still, it's DK Metcalf. In my opinion, it's the first time in a very long time DK Metcalf is not a lineup lock, which is difficult, but what are you going to do? The Seahawks actually lost this one, though, to the 49ers. So, this is specifically in this game, I believe, Week 2 matchup against the Seahawks in San Francisco is where Trey Lance went out. I don't expect him to come back this season. I believe it was a season-ending injury. I did have to replace him. I had drafted Derek Carr as a backup quarterback in that league, so he has been my stand-in. I believe I just picked up Jared Goff in that league. If you are in a similar situation as I am, then there's a couple of streaming options there, Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, that I would recommend. Cooper Kupp, right? Now, we didn't talk about the Rams nearly as much. Cam Akers finally becoming the primary back in LA, but Cooper Kupp has had 30 points through 2 games, 2 weeks, and the man is unstoppable. Massively impressed. Joe Burrow and the Cowboys still hasn't found his legs here in week 2. Joe Burrow, he's struggled over the first 2 weeks. And that affects his receivers. T. Higgins did all right here, 10 targets, 6 receptions, 75 yards. My problem was not T. Higgins, it was Ja'Marr Chase. Ja'Marr Chase, 9 targets, 5 catches for 54 yards. He's putting up. He was drafted as somebody that should be putting up Cooper Kupp-like points. Same with Justin Jefferson, for example. And I don't believe that that's been shown. Both of them, actually. Big games in week 1 and have kind of dropped off the last 3 weeks production-wise. I think Chase had a relatively good run in Miami, and I do believe that he scored a touchdown against the Jets in week 3, but it's not the kind of production you're expecting from somebody that you probably took in the first round. So that being said, the kid is so talented. It's hard not to start him. I didn't really draft Chase. The only Bengal I actually came out for and went out of my way for was Joe Mixon. But there just is such a massive amount of talent on this team in the skills positions that it's hard not to start them. Cowboys lost Dak Prescott, of course. Cooper Kupp in 135 yards, 31 attempts, 19 completions, right? Not bad. Cooper Rush showing basically that he can orchestrate this team to a victory. I believe he has 2 victories on 2 starts. So, a win record in NFL, not bad. Texans Broncos, Brandon Cook going out here. 10 targets for Brandon Cook, 54 yards in total. Years, right? Somebody that if you drafted, you probably drafted him later on, and he's been extremely useful. He's been very productive. He's been a mainstay for this offense. Broncos, of course, have had their woes. One of the bright spots here, Courtland Sutton, just absolutely incredible in this game against the Texans. 11 targets, 7 receptions, 122 yards. It's hard to get behind. Judy got injured early on in this match and got taken out, so really wasn't a humongous factor. And Russell Wilson, 50% completion rate, interception, so maybe not functioning at the. Russell Wilson wants to be firing on all cylinders. I'm sure this game was hard for him to go through, but better days to come, I think. I'm expecting a bounce back from Russell Wilson this week, so we'll see what happens. Right, Bears. The Bears are like the opposites of the Jets or the Commanders. It's saying this kid is not throwing the ball. Justin Fields is so talented, so athletic, but he's not throwing the ball. There has been a minute amount of usage here. We'll take a look at that at the end, but it's definitely worth noting. David Montgomery, incredible in this game, finishing for 102 yards. Their run game is just, I think, scheme set up to bolster run, and I think it looks great. Of course, here they're going up against the Packers, Aaron Jones just does a number on them. 15 attempts, 132 yards. A.J. Dillon also had a big day, and Rodgers did very well. 19 completions, 1 to 5 attempts. Extremely impressive. Cardinals-Raiders game was incredible. Decided in the last seconds by a fumble return for a touchdown by Arizona. Very, very interesting. Darren Waller stepping in, 8 targets, 6 catches. It was great. I draft Waller all over the place this year. I was really excited to get him. I got him in the 3rd, 4th round. In some situations, it was awesome. It was incredibly able to snag him up. Even better that he's getting this kind of target. I was actually worried because clearly Davante Adams is going to take a large portion of the future. Just to his talent alone. He's such a talented guy. I would be surprised if he didn't get that. So here we are. Cardinals beat the Steelers in week 2. And we have one more game set to go through before our week 3 wrap-up. All right. Browns and Steelers. Back talking about the incredible matchup of 23 to 113 yards. Sensational. It's hard to do this because he's been so productive for 3 weeks at a position that has seen very little from other running backs in the league. He put in the work. I saw a video on Bleacher Report, Chubb in a squat, massive amount of weight, bar bending on his back. So that hard work paid off, and hats off to you, Chubb. I can't tell you enough how sad I've been. I would drive you there, really. I made a mistake. Amari Cooper, so looking incredible again. 11 targets, 7 catches, 101 yards. Also scored a touchdown. Very, very good. Harris touched on this outing, 556 yards, added 3 receptions on 3 targets in the backfield. So that's always worth talking about. Deontay Johnson, still no touch. This is the epitome of usage-based production, right? Like this kid's gonna produce. He's gonna get the ball. They're going to get him. For me, I just went crazy on Deontay Johnson. I drafted him in most of my leagues, 5 of my leagues, because I've seen interviews with him. I've kept up with him. His work ethic, his maturity level on the field, his emotional output and desire to want to thrive. I think it'll lead to great things for him. Maybe right now we're going quarterback transition days. Can pick it up, come in, and I can't wait until these guys roll again and have a winning team again. Hoping TJ Watt's recovery going quickly. Always been stiff at defense. Minka Fitzpatrick, and would have been TJ Watt had not torn his bicep muscle, I believe, in this week. So, I guess that's that, right? That game is over. Panthers again. Horrible line for DJ Moore. At this point, week 3, DJ Moore's got to work himself back in their lineup. DJ Moore, you're not starting. I wouldn't recommend that you start. He's such a talented guy. It makes me really sad, but this is the way it's going to be until we have some more production coming from his pass offense. There's no trust there. Chris Olave, another guy I draft heavily. I love drafting young players going in the 1st round are always awesome to draft. Olave, right? Showing out, coming through 13 targets, 9 receptions, 147 yards. He had a stellar day. Thomas caught all 5 of his targets for 49 yards. Kamara in this contest, 61 yards. It's impressive. And they deserve it. They got a record and they deserve it, I think that the Saints, despite their quarterback woes and Winston having problems going in week 4, have been really so bullish on this team. Not so much on teams playing against them. Marshall Lattimore, very young defense they just acquired. The Honey Badger. This is defensive set is looking at a successful season, and I don't think that you're going to stand it away. It's best to off the train tracks on this one. All right, let's do it. Chiefs, Colts, core. One of the tapes, one of them, again, just massive usage, man. It's great to see, especially if draft him, the ability to go out and get him in the 1st round. He was my 1st round draft pick in one of the leagues that I drafted 1st round, and I haven't looked back. Right? He's always going to produce. He is too talented not to, in my opinion. The Chiefs here, and handed Kansas City their first loss. It was a confusing situation to me, most because Mahomes just has this energy on this year that he's coming for that ticket. He wants another one. So I was impressed, but not surprised. This is pass heavy defense going up a deep secondary with very talented players. So yeah, is what it is. It makes it's important to make a note that Clyde Edwards-Helaire, all he has been catching most of the passing, getting most of the touchdowns, was kind of foreshadowed in this. He didn't as well as his counterpart. So see what's going to happen with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who has been just a fancy marvel, right? If you drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire and you got him in your lineup, you love him. I don't necessarily think he's a lineup block, but hey, you've been using him, I'm sure because he's been doing great. Tag Bears, here we go again. Bears. I'm impressed that they're able to win with such little usage from the quarterback, but then you look at numbers with their backs, that makes total sense. Hurt, Kerber looked incredible. 20 times, 157 yards. Stellar. You drop only. Answer, absolutely. Yes, now is the time to drop Tom Mooney. Sorry. Damian Pierce, though, right? You're paying off, paying dividends. Look awesome. So let's get the Dolphins. Also a game I thought Dolphins might take the L on, but we sat at the top of week 3 at 3-0, and I was baffled, honestly. Mostly because this defense has been so amazing. The D-line has been incredible. Gregory Rousseau, I hat off to you. I love watching you in college in Miami. It's incredible. Their defensive set is monumental, if you will. One big factor here, though, is that Jordan Poirier died. They were out. So, of course, for me, the win comes a little bit of a strict, but I am very critical. Most Dolphin fans will their hearts to this victory and not think about it twice. And that's what I recommend most Dolphin fans do. If you're a manager, though, it's worth noting. They were without their 2 big guys in that secondary. It's been like very hard to get through. Cooper Kupp, not necessarily struggled with, but took some time to get started against this team. So, in my opinion, he is the most productive fantasy position. Not even in my opinion, just like actually, he is the most productive fantasy wide receiver of the division. By Stefon Diggs being incredible in this game. I left to get sashes 70 yards. I drafted him into my leagues this year, and he's just incredible. So if you picked up Stefon Diggs in the second round, the way I did, you are thrilled. You're absolutely thrilled. You're loving it. Very cool. Very, very cool. Only leagues got to draft running back and wide receiver, so that was awesome. Dolphins take victory, though. Very impressive. They were not on field a lot, right? Played like minute amount of snaps. 2 only threw the ball 18 times. That's not usually much more passing attempts made. But they wanted the defensive plays that they had to play in big moments. They saw them at the goal line. They had to. Nothing to be said about this other than it was a well fought battle between 2 teams that I think both wanted to win for different reasons. But I think both of these teams came to the game winning. Allen wants to cement himself in the league. He knows, and I know too. Allen is spectacular. I think Dolphins will improve. I, as a fan of Miami Dolphins, grew up in Miami. I have always had something to prove. I've just been waiting until we've been able to back up and get the pieces that we need to become more productive. Offense, again, defense. We've done pretty well at defense. My favorite pick growing up was Zach Thomas. Second favorite was Dick Taylor. Both tremendous defensive pieces. Played here for Dolphins. All right, let's move on. Lions, of course, looking exceptional, absolutely incredible, and the Vikings eking out the victory. Jeff Okudah take on Justin Jefferson to completely shut down right this 2 back-to-back weeks. Justin Jefferson's been kind of. And for big purposes, he's still targets, his depth is there, but back magical, and it's shown his line. I do expect Jefferson, but Thielen was the lead. And this one, he targets, he caught 6 of them, 61 yards. Dalvin Cook, 96 yards. Very impressive from Cook. All right, Ravens and Patriots. Nice. I kind of went this one thinking that Lamar Jackson was going to kind of have a ton of shoulder and he was just going to destroy. And I think that's exactly what he did. He led the rushing and passing portions of that line, 11 attempts rushing for 107 yards, 218 yards thrown. Mark Andrews, another session, 89 yards, 3 targets. It's very hard to complain about these 2 fancy pieces. Rashad Bateman, right? Rashad Bateman's been taking love targets here and can go downfield. And the senior looks incredible. I'm not thinking I'm able to go out with Rashad Bateman. He's not available in some of my 10 league teams. So imagine I'm short at 12 teams and 16 teams. There's just no shot. Then let's we talked about this. We talked about Joe Burrow. Joe Mixon down in this game. Mixon didn't lead the charge, rushing around 9 attempts on 47 yards. Bad Boyce has been very talented. 4 or 5 targets for 105 yards. And the Bills take their first in week 3, rolling to week 4, where we know what happened there. Big sequel with his medical situation and well warranted. I read that the NFL has fired the doctor that was in charge of the assessment after it hit the Bills. So some pressure with his family. I hope he recovery, and there's some thoughts that he'll be great. They got positive news for the MRI that they took when they got back here to Miami, so that is awesome. But back to Joe Burrow, first good game, 23 of 36 here, 275 yards. It looks like old Joe Burrow, right? It looks like the old Joe Burrow. He's finding his rhythm, and that's what I thought was going to happen. I started Joe Burrow in one of my leagues, and I was able to actually get him as backup. Thank the Lord. And it started for me. He's one of my Trey Lance. I took him basically back because I was uncertain. About Trey Lance. And I did draft Trey Lance back in both leagues. I expect that he will be back. We have not seen the last of Trey Lance, but for the season, we definitely have. The Jets, right? Michael Carter or Breece Hall, who is the guy? here. Who's the guy? Love this offense, man. 135 pass attempts. Those pass attempts tonight, if I have my numbers correctly, out of any NFL team in the league. Garrett Wilson has been absolutely incredible, as well as Tyler Conklin come out of nowhere. So that's been very interesting. And in this, right? So Michael Carter, splitting carries, not getting a lot of usage in the pass catching role as well, not really much Brees Hall at least. So which one is it? It leaves us wanting more. Are we going to see Brees Hall take over? Is this going to be a committee for the rest of the season? I'm interested to find out what's going to happen. I think that this game in Week 4 will reveal more about the Jets' offense. We'll just wait to see. Rich Titans, yeah. Derrick Henry coming in hot. Finally, super hard. Has a huge game here. 20 times, 85 yards. Even caught a couple of balls, right? Something you don't usually see Derrick Henry doing. I love the way Derrick Henry runs. He is a one-of-a-kind athlete, a one-of-a-kind running back, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does this week. Draft Treylon Burks. We haven't seen enough usage in the passing game. We haven't seen enough targets. I was hoping for a breakout season, kind of like I got with Drake London or Chris Olave, but that yet to happen. Hoping it comes in this week. We'll see what happens. Treylon Burks, extremely talented receiver, USC first-round pick in this year's draft by the Tennessee Titans. Eagles Commanders, right? Super rough matchup for the Washington Commanders and a defense that has just been stellar. Hats off to Darius Slay. Hats off to James Bradbury. You guys look incredible. Hats off to that D-line. I mean, there's not a lot I can say. I think that your success said everything. The Eagles are the only undefeated team now in the NFL, right? That's awesome. So, I have Jalen Hurts again, as I said earlier. Many of the league, I was able to pick up Devonta Smith. And in one specific, I was able to pick up Hurts and AJ. So I wasn't able to get them, sadly. But Devonta Smith, huge numbers this game. 12 targets, 7, 169 yards. Still got good pressure, not a down. Not a good stat line. Hurts is contending for MVP at this point. We've got to the point in the timeline where now Hurts is a basic all-star. I do he's not a Pro Bowl action. His arm accuracy looks incredible. And he was able to, kind of lead this Eagles team to score as the defense clearly a job and snuff out the Washington Commanders attack. And speak to past tense,